Let me tell you why we're here. Business mastery. Not business dabbling, not business interest, not business stressing, but really business mastery. You've committed yourself to a 5-day process. We wanted to create a system for people that can show them how to attack their business and take it to a whole nother level in the current environment and any environment that evolves in the future. How many feel like business has changed pretty radically in the last couple of years? Say aye. So new rules of the game have shown up, and we have to adapt, and we have to figure out how to utilize those rules to actually do better than any other time. When economic difficult times occur in any economy, in any part of the world, and the world is really linked up now, as we all know, those are the opportunities where you see the transformation in businesses. The businesses, some of the wealthiest people today in this country and in North America, most of them got in the position they're in to be some of the wealthiest people in the world because of the Depression. It was a time in which they grew the most. One of the most obvious examples we all know is the Kennedys. I think Joe Kennedy in 1929 had $4 million. By 1932, he had 180 million. That's the middle of the Depression. The opportunity for you to take market share, the opportunity for you to go from either a strong player to the strongest player in the industry, or to go from a place where you're brand new, you're an army of one, because we have a room here that's really diverse, and you're starting just out right now. There are people that have been the leaders in the industry forever, and your ability to take that leadership from them. There has never been a greater opportunity in your lifetime, and that's not based on positive thinking, that's based on the fact that the rules of the game are turned, they've changed, they've shifted, and the opportunity to compete for anyone, a small business or a large business, the tools are there for all of us. So these 5 days are about how do we really master our businesses, but how many would agree no business is really a reflection of anything but usually the leadership of that business? Would you agree with me on this? Say aye. So really, mastering business is mastering whom, for starters? Ourselves. So we want to make sure in this program that we don't just sit and take notes on business and we sit kind of passively and take this in. My focus here is to make sure that you get unbelievable value. Because you've committed 5 days of your life. Somebody wants 5 days of my life, they better deliver. Because we got to deliver for you. We're not here to just have a rah-rah session. And if you're going to get the most out of this, you're going to have to step into this right now with a whole different mindset than you do almost anything you've done before. It's not, I'm sitting here to learn or to, can I apply that? As was said earlier, you want to take notes, you want to immerse yourself in this in a really physically active way that's different than the traditional way you've learned. You want to take notes as if you were going to teach this to someone you love, like your associates, your family members, your partners, your kids, all the people you're taking this home to because you're going to want to. Don't take notes about what you think you'll use. Take notes on everything because some of this stuff is going to show up in another stage of your business and you're going to want to have that. So our commitment is to make that happen. It's a good challenge and I'm excited to do this. I'm also challenged. My excitement is I know what's coming for you and you don't. You're going to be learning from entrepreneurs. Some of them, by the way, are attending this program. Some are coming in for their stages to be able to teach here. But this room is filled with people that are that army of one person just starting it. There's a few of you in this room, and there are people in this room that are running multi-billion-dollar businesses. That's the diversity we deliberately created in this room because the core issues around mastering a business, while the game and certain strategies or tactics may change, the core doesn't change. At different stages of the business, you need to focus on different things, but certain elements are sacrosanct. They can't be ignored. They can't be, you can't put yourself in a position where you fail to be on top of them. That's why some businesses grow like crazy and then they lose some of those fundamentals later on. They get overconfident and you see those businesses take a huge hit. And we've seen that recently, haven't we? You look at a company like Lehman, been around 158 years, billions in assets. 4 months later, what were they? Bankrupt. I mean, who would have guessed in a million years? Look at a company like AOL. Remember how dominant they were? They owned the internet. Now, if you got an AOL account, please don't share it with anyone. It's embarrassing, right? But didn't they own it? And they lost it. I mean, they had more money, more resources, more dominance than anybody else out there. That's because the game has changed. So what we're here to do is make sure we deliver. Our excitement is we know what we've got. My other excitement is who's in this room. So you got these people just starting their businesses. You got businesses in this room that are, 5 to 10 million. You got 50 to 100 million, multi-$100 million a year businesses in terms of gross revenues and billions. We got Tony here from Zappos. I mean, Zappos is an unbelievable story. One of the best companies in the world to work for. You know, depending on which magazine you read, they're in that top 10, 20, or 30, depending on the magazine. And I was there yesterday at Zappos. I got a chance to go because they're based here in Vegas, at least one of their organizations are, a portion of their company is. You see 800 people that are on fire. There's an energy. You walk in, it's not like walking anyplace else. It's the most fun place you could possibly work. Nobody wants to leave. They're excited to be at work in the morning. They're passionate to meet customers' needs. They're on the phone talking to somebody. They go, we don't have that product, but you know what? Let me find it for you. JCPenney has it. Go to JCPenney on this street and go get it. Because if we can't get it for you, we're going to deliver for you. It's an amazing culture. And guess what? You know, in less than 10 years, they're doing $1 billion in revenue. They dominate the shoe market online, and they're no longer a shoe company anymore. Tony's going to speak here tomorrow afternoon as well. But you get a chance to see what they've really become is a company. It's like Amazon might be the discounter that'll sell you everything, computers, right? They'll sell you books, they'll sell everything. This is the company Zappos that's got so much customer service, so much value they're adding and knowing who you are that they're able to do now kind of what Amazon was doing. They're broadening. They're doing clothing, they're doing utensils, they're doing computers. But you say, how can they do that? Because Zappos is becoming like Virgin. They're becoming a larger brand, and they're finding a way to meet customers' needs like nobody else, and they don't have to discount to capture that customer. So we're gonna learn about those strategies. But Tony's in here to learn. What the heck is he doing sitting in this class? Didn't he just come and speak? Because the reason he is where he is, the reason Zappos is their team is constantly, never ending, finding what is that cutting edge. They're staying hungry. What do we do to go to that next level? That's what these 5 days are about. We have a group here, some of you from North America may not know, but from Mexico, HomeX, multi-billion-dollar company, the #1 home builder in Mexico. They build 140 homes a day. A day. So we're gonna go from people that are just starting their company making chocolate or bras to people building, you know, the internet or, you know, building the largest number of homes. They're all in this room, and that's what's valuable here. We're gonna learn from each other. We're gonna lay the foundation today. And part of the challenge that I've got is, how many have been to one of my events before? I'm curious. Wow, quite a few of you. So most of you know, like the shortest program I do is like 50 hours, 50, you know, in a weekend, total immersion, because my whole approach is, everybody talks a good game, and people say, oh, I know this stuff, but if you're not doing it, you don't know it. You may intellectually understand something, you may have heard it before, but hearing it before is not the same as doing it. Repetition is the mother of skill. You gotta do it again and hear it again and experience it again. And what I do in an event is we go into immersion where we're doing the things again and again until it gets in your body and becomes automatic. So now you're really following through instead of just intellectually understanding something. It's a different level of mastery. That's what we're gonna do here as well. But here, we got 5 days and we got 19 speakers. So my job is, I own you today. My job is to give you a foundation today that will be the filter for everything else that you're doing. It'll be the thing that helps you understand where to look for the problems based on where you are in your business. It's gonna help you orient yourself to who are you in your business? Who do you need to be in your business? It's gonna orient you towards kind of answering what I consider to be the 5 most important questions of your business. Kind of taking stock, because from that foundation, you know, today my associate's gonna get up here, Chet, in midday, and he's gonna take you through what are the real strategies, not tactics, but the strategies that create just explosive growth. The companies that go from 0 to 100 million or $1 billion, depending upon the industry. The ones that can grow, what are the common things that they're doing? We're gonna work on those today as well. And then we're gonna explode over the next few days into a format of immersion. We're gonna bring you the best of the best, bite-sized chunks you're gonna capture like crazy, take these tools so you can apply them and take them home, make things work. So if we're gonna master our businesses, if we're gonna take that on, it doesn't just happen, especially today. So I've had the privilege, I never got into business because I was like wanting to get into business. I was a guy that had these dreams of I wanted to help people, and then there was no distribution channel. If I'd been a great singer, it'd be easy. If I wasn't kidding myself, large distribution channel. In my business, it was books, that was it. And that's what most people did, wrote books. So I had to build the distribution channel. I kind of helped, you know, start to create an industry. I definitely created the coaching industry. No one was using that term or approach. In fact, I did it for about 10 years before it caught on. Right about the time I was about to stop calling what I did coaching because I didn't want to be a motivator or a guru. A coach is not better than you. A coach, you might, you know, Michael Jordan had a coach, I remember, and he quit when that coach quit because Jordan was better, but the coach could see things he couldn't see because he wasn't on the court, he wasn't in the forest. So I'd like, you know, coaching is, I'm not better, but I know certain things and I can help. That was my approach. And all of a sudden, everybody in the world was a coach. Psychiatrists were coaches, financial people were coaches, everybody's a coach. But when I was a coach, it was based on results. You only paid for results. Now everybody just calls themselves that process. But I built an industry. And then gradually I got into business, and I built 12 different companies in radically different industries. I built the top spa and resort in Fiji, Namale, #1 in the country there. Started with just nothing and built it up, 525 acres, into something that's just exquisite. I got, from that business, I decided I want to help people with their health. I got in the nutraceutical business and took on Twin Labs and turned it around, if you know that company, and Metabolife, a whole series of other companies that we did a roll up in. Got in practice management, built one of the fastest growing companies in practice management, Fortune Practice Management. I built the educational firms and companies I'm a part of. I built a little TV business. I've been where I was at the edge going, how do we survive this week? Who's ever been there in your business, right? And like your guts are ripped out of you. And I've been there when I was on stage doing an event at the Continental Center, and I got 14,000 people in the room and we're rocking the house. And during the stretch break, the guy comes up and goes, my company went public that day, and he goes, your stock is worth $400 million, $500 million almost. And I'm like, good day. I've also been there when the stock market was crashing going, well, what the hell's happened? We lost $100 million in the last 2 days. I've been through the cycle. And in the end, it's never the damn money anyway. It's the sense of mastery. It's the sense that what you do can change or impact your customers' lives, your clients, internal and external, the people you get to work with, your family, right? Because sometimes that really becomes your family. It's what you can create in the world. What business mastery is about is how do I take a vision that I got in my head and make it real? How do I take the invisible and make it visible? And how do I sustain that and grow it? Because almost everybody can get to a point. But keeping that point is a whole other level. You heard the statistics earlier, if you don't remember them. How many businesses make it? In the first year, how many are gone? Almost 50%. 5 years, it's 80%. 10 years, it's 96%. 500,000 new businesses are created per year. 500,000. At the end of 10 years, there's 20,000 of them left, 4%. And by the way, those are the numbers from good times. So it could be even different today, right? Think about it. That's recent, 3 or 4 years ago. Things haven't shifted. So we're talking about something that's exciting, challenging, it never stops. It causes you to have to grow. And by the way, as you grow and change in your life and your goals and vision changes, it affects the business, unless you completely leverage it. And some of you right in this room, you got into business, you want to master business, and your whole goal is, I'm getting into business so I can have more free time. Clearly, when you see someone talk about that, you go, they don't know what it is to run a business. That's like saying, I'd like to have a child so I can have more free time. It doesn't work that way, right? So this mixture of emotion is going to require a different energy. So my point is simple. I'm going to ask you right now from this point forward to say, if you're not going to master this, we're going to go with immersion, we're going to go with energy, we're going to go with activity, we're going to respond, we're not going to sit passively. How many up for this? Say aye. Now, if a leader affects a business, how many agree the leadership of a business shapes it? Say aye. Aye. What affects the leader? His wife. Good, sir. Very nice. Her husband. This woman just slapped him and goes, her husband. Now think about this. Your ability to master yourself is the first game of mastering your business. Because otherwise, you got to think about this. Whatever influences you tends to influence whoever you're leading, which then tends to influence the business as a whole. True? So we got to look at it. What's influencing you most right now? How many of you in the last 12 months have had a gut checked or a sphincter check, whatever proper terminology you would use, around your business because of major shifts in the economy? Who's experienced that in your business here? Say aye. Almost all businesses have. I get stopped in the street every day. I got barbers talking to me going, what do I do? And billionaires, literally. One of my clients, I've been coaching for 17 years. He's one of the top 10 financial traders in the world, in the history of the world. This is a guy who in 1987, when the stock market crashed by the largest percentage at that point ever, and everybody's freaking out, he made $500 million that day when everybody else is freaking. Then he lost money for the next 4 years because he went beyond what he'd expected and it messed up his head, and he didn't perform and lost money. So he's been my client for 17 years. He pays me $1 million a year. I don't tell you that to impress you, but it impresses me. No, but he pays me $1 million a year plus a piece of the upside. He's obviously not looking for motivation. What he looks for is strategy. He emails me every day, 5 days a week. I've worked with all the people around him, George Soros, all the people. I got a chance to study what they did, what he did, to find his patterns, and his patterns are always changing. He has to respond to a change in the marketplace. In order for him to succeed, though, he can even know what to do, but why do most people fail in business? Because they don't execute it, and the reason they don't execute it is state. If fear takes you over, all your decisions change. True or false? If greed takes you over, does that happen also, yes or no? Yeah, you start thinking it's gonna be great forever, I can do no wrong, and you start doing everything, taking huge risks you haven't really thought through. You got challenges there too. So my job with him is to really keep his psychology straight, as well as make sure his strategies and tactics are adjusting to the environment in an ideal way. You gotta do the same for yourself. You gotta say, I gotta know what's influencing me, and here's what's influencing you, two forces. First, I'll say this. If you wanna influence someone else as a leader, you have to know what's already influencing them. Business is a game of influence. Think of it now. If you can't influence your people, you can't have the impact that you want. If your people can't influence, you're not influence clients. Peter Drucker said, business is only two things really at its essence. It's innovation and marketing. You gotta keep innovating, creating something that's better than anybody else has got, right? You gotta be able to add more value to the customer than anybody else is giving. And you gotta be able to market it. You gotta convince people it's the best, it's the thing they're gonna use right now. That's all of business. All the other pieces, accounting, all the other things are critically important, but they're supportive of the two cores of your business. If you account perfectly, but you don't innovate, you don't keep finding a way to add more value to the customer, you're gonna be gone. If you innovate, but you can't market it, you can't bring it where people want it, forget it. That's business. So what manages you though? Two things. If I want to influence somebody, I gotta know what already influences them. Two things influence a person. Number one is the state they're in. And while you're standing, I want you to think about this because you're gonna have to manage your state if you wanna manage other people's. Think about it. Who here has ever snapped at somebody, had nothing to do with that person whatsoever, right? It was just the state you were in. How many have ever done this before? Say aye. Who's ever been snapped at unfairly? Say aye. Now I got all the victims as well. Make sure we took care of that, right? But we all have done it, right? It's just the state you're in. So state influences people. Do state influence customers, yes or no? Yes. What's the biggest difference in our economy from not long ago? Not long ago, we had some of the same problems. Stocks were $85 that today are $5, $4, $1. When things are going well, people think it's gonna go well forever. When it's going bad, they think it's gonna go bad for, and they overcompensate with fear or greed. So you have to be able to manage your state, and you gotta know that's what affects other people. And we're gonna just show you a couple of quick skills around that because many of you have been to my events, many haven't, and we gotta unify ourselves. It's like we gotta get the foundation laid so we absorb everything else. Because will your state affect what you use, yes or no? Yes. Second thing that's gonna affect you is your blueprint. Moment to moment, what you do is based on your state. Long term, it's your blueprint. Your blueprint is the shorthand word I use for your beliefs and values and your rules of how life's supposed to be. If your blueprint says, I can't do this, you're not gonna do it. You're not gonna find the way. If your blueprint says it's over, the economy's gone, then even if you put your heart into it, supposedly, you're not gonna follow through. Our blueprint is our rules about how life's supposed to be, how business is supposed to be, how other people are supposed to be. Many of you get frustrated with your people because they don't match your blueprint. They shouldn't be that way. Well, you can shit all over yourself, but they're still gonna be that way. They shouldn't be that way, they are. Your job is to pick better people. Your job is to learn how to enter their world. Your job is to influence them. Business is influence. You gotta be able to change their state, influence their blueprint. That's leadership. Let's take a look at what this is all about. We start out this morning trying to get you in a state ready to learn. I want you to make sure you keep this state. So kind of anchor it in your body, really nice and strong. But now let's focus on what we're gonna do these 5 days. Yes, business mastery starts with yourself, but what really turns around a business? I mean, what are we here for? We're here so you can have some business breakthroughs. You don't wanna just do better. You don't wanna just grow your business a little bit. How many came here, you really came for some breakthroughs? Say aye. Then the question we gotta ask ourselves is, what creates a business breakthrough? Really, what does that? What's the force? We've seen businesses, Disney years ago was in a position where it was a company a couple decades ago where it had actually gone down. Company was getting green mail. It was getting to a point where it looked like it was going to be broken up. And Disney came together and they brought in a leader, a guy named Michael Eisner. And now he's been gone for a long time, but at the time he entered, for those couple of decades, what happened to Disney? Overnight, what happened? Explosion, business breakthroughs. Stock doubled, tripled, quadrupled. Because the man made certain decisions that changed the business. Think about it. You can look at any business, and if you want to know what shifts a business, what shifts your life, there's one force: decision making. Decision making is the force that shapes destiny, personal, corporate, business destiny. How many of you can think of the decisions that you made years ago, 1 or 2 decisions, 5, 10, 15 years ago? That decision, you may not have realized it at the time, but that decision was one of the most important decisions of your life. If you'd made a different decision there, you'd gone a different direction, your life would be completely different today. Who can relate to this in your life? Say I. The secret then is getting darn good at making more effective decisions. Now, by the way, are we always going to make the right decision, yes or no? Absolutely not, no way in a million years. But most people don't have the guts to make the tough decisions because they want to make the right decision, so they make no decision. And that's a decision. Isn't it true? And what happens is the world takes them over. So decision making is the power. Now, there's 3 decisions you're making every moment of your life and of your business. You're making it right now in this room. And if you're watching here on film especially, you might make some decisions because you're not in the environment that's different. But the first decision you're making every moment of your life that affects your life and business is, what are you going to focus on? Because whatever you focus on, you're going to feel. So as a business owner, every employee you have each day comes in and they make decisions about what to focus on. Some people focus on their own needs, some people focus on the customer's needs. Is that going to change the quality of what your business does? How it does, yes or no? A little or completely? Completely. Some people focus on what they can't control every day. Can you predict, if you're focusing every day on what you can't control, how you're going to feel about your life or your business? You're going to be overwhelmed, you're going to be depressed, you're going to be frustrated. Right now, you're deciding what to focus on. You can be focusing on, okay, we're getting into it now. I got the energy, now we're going to get into the meat of this. You're right, all business is decision making, better decisions, better life. Or you could be saying, wow, my neighbor smells after all that jumping up and down. Notice that focus, right? Whatever you focus on, you're going to experience though, true? Now, some people make a decision and then they focus on the decision about how it didn't work out versus what they learned. Because there are going to be plenty of decisions that don't work out. In fact, probably if we were honest, most of us forget them. But most of our decisions aren't necessarily the right decisions if we make gutsy ones. But the ultimate decision is the ability to choose again. So focus is a decision. It's happening right now. It's happening in your business. But here's what we're looking for. There's a pattern of focus. At some stages in business, as you're going to learn today, the focus of the entrepreneur in the business is increasing sales. And they increase sales, and when they're successful, they eventually fail. Because their sales are increasing, but what's not? Someone tell me, what's not? Profits. Some people are totally focused on profits. Can you make any company profitable, yes or no? Sure you can. Cut enough stuff, you can make any company profitable for a while. A day, a week, a month, a year, a decade. True? At different stages in the business, you must change your focus. There's a life cycle to a business. If you're going to make effective decisions, you got to know where you are on that life cycle. You make decisions differently for a teenager than a toddler, than a grown adult, don't you? Same thing's true in a business, in your life. So if you're going to control your life, the way you take control is by making new choices. If you don't like how things are, what do you got to do? Change it. And to change it, you have to make a decision. And by the way, leaders make decisions. That's what makes somebody a leader. They have the guts to make the most difficult decisions nobody else has the guts to make. And they know they're going to be wrong. But if they're wrong, what will they do? They'll know what they want, they see it's not working, and they'll do what? Change it, which means they'll make another decision, do something new, and see if it works. That's the essence of how we grow. So first decision controls your life is focus. Lots of patterns. Some people focus on what they can control, some focus on what they can't control. Some focus on customers, as I said, some focus on themselves. If you've made this whole business about meeting your needs, You can run a successful business, but it'll be a job because you'll never be able to sell it. Because if it's just meeting your needs, it's not a system. It demands your attention, your connection. It's giving what you want. But ultimately, it's not going to give somebody else what they want, so you can't sell it. If you can't sell your business, if you don't have an exit strategy, you have a job. I don't care how successful the business is. That doesn't mean you have to sell the business. But one of the most important decisions you make in business is, ultimately, if I was going to sell this, if I chose to, I have to know who would I sell this to so that I have long-term value, not just an income along the way. I have this critical mass hit. I get a multiple of my business. And most people don't have a clear exit strategy. They think I'll come up with that someday. You got to start with that end in mind. That's got to be part of your focus if you're going to be successful in your business. I can remember a gentleman who's built CAA in Hollywood, his largest, most successful agency, right? Michael Ovitz, remember that name? He put together Nike and Coca-Cola and these billion-dollar deals. And eventually, Mike Ovitz went to go sell that business. He'd never thought through an exit strategy, and he got almost nothing for it. Because the laws prevented him from selling it to a studio. He had to sell it to some of his employees for pennies on its real value. Now, Mike found a way to make money later on in another place off of Disney. But the bottom line is, the guy didn't have an exit strategy. Even though it was brilliant, made lots of money, in the end didn't get the value. Focus. Your first decision is, what are you going to focus on? Second decision, the minute you focus on something, you're going to feel it. So if you focus on, oh my God, the economy's coming apart. My industry's, people are not buying my product or service. They're shutting it down. Consumers are not spending the money. Is that going to affect your state? Yes or no? Now, should you lie to yourself and just pretend there aren't challenges? No. But you're going to have to focus instead on, what am I going to do? What's the need that's still there? In any marketplace, there's always still people buying. I've seen it throughout the years. Even in some simple little business, let's say you're a realtor. You have your own little real estate office, or you kind of your own salesperson. You got a couple people that work with you that help you leverage yourself. Something that simple. I remember years ago, I met a woman named Marty Rodriguez. She's from the town I grew up in. She came to one of my seminars, and then she would be sitting in the front row, and in a year, I may have done 25 seminars. She was probably at 10 of them, same seminar, in the front row. This is a woman who was the #1 real estate agent for Century 21 in the free world. 9 out of 11 years. I watched her in good times make money, in the worst times make money. A few years ago, she sold more real estate in the city she's from than the entire multiple listing service of other agents combined. One person. Now she built it into a business. She's got a whole team that runs it, but it's still her. She built the brand. How does she do well when it's going horrible? She says, I love when the economy gets terrible because it gets rid of all those flaky realtors. All those flaky mortgage brokers. There's so many of them. They got in the business, was going up, and they all got successful because they were on a trend. When the trend crashed, they all left me all the business. She loves these times. But the reason is her focus is different. Does that make sense? Completely different focus. So when you're focusing, you got to decide what I'm going to focus on. But as soon as you focus on something, even if it's not true, you're going to feel it. So if you think someone tells you, someone screwed you over, they took advantage of you, and you're like, what? And you're all upset, and you picture it in your mind, and now you're angry. And then later you go to confront this person and you find out it wasn't true. Who's ever had something like this happen and felt like an idiot? Raise your hand and say I. But when you focus on it, does it control you? Do you feel it? Yes or no? So just write focus equals feeling. Whatever you focus on, you're going to feel. And as a leader, you're going to have to manage those feelings. And you're going to do it by managing your focus. By the way, if you're going to lead other people, do you have to create a focus for the company, for the organization to be successful? Yes or no? You got to find yourself, what are people focusing on? It's affecting all the decisions in the company. So as soon as you focus on it, finally get to decision number 2. Decision number 2 is, what does this mean? When you focus on something, you got to give it a meaning. Is this the end or the beginning? If you think this is the end of your business, the end of opportunity, the end of our economy, are you going to feel differently and act differently than if you think it's the beginning? Yes or no? See, the difference between Joe Kennedy with $4 million in 1929 and Joe Kennedy with $180+ million in 1932, that big a jump, different focus, different meaning. When everybody else said it was the end and they were focusing on how to survive, he was focusing on how to take market share, he was focusing on what the opportunities were. The meaning for him was, is this the greatest opportunity of my lifetime? There'll never be another time like this. And he made enough money in that time that took care of all his heirs after that for decades to come. All because he had a different focus and a different meaning. Listen, if you're in an intimate relationship and you think it's the end of that relationship, are you going to treat that person the same way as if you think it's the beginning? Yes or no? No. Somebody's laughing over here. They know. No way. But you know what? In the beginning of a relationship, what will you do for somebody you love? What will you do for them? Come on, what? What? If they say, would you take out the trash? What do you say? I'll take out the trash, of course. What else would you like me to do? Isn't it true? After 3 or 4 years, they say, or 5 or 7, they go, will you take out the trash? Person goes, what do I look like, your janitor? And they go, I don't know what it is. We don't seem to have the same attraction. I don't know what happened. Here's what I tell people. Treat people at the end of the relationship like it's the beginning, and there won't be an end. And that's not just your intimate relationship. What if your customers, what if you fell in love with your customers, with your clients, more than your product, more than your company? If your entire life was about meeting their needs, if you would do what for your customers and clients, you would do what? If you love your customers and clients, you do anything, guess what? They're gonna love you. But most people love their customers and clients as long as they buy from them, do what they want, respond to them. And when they don't, they go, that's the end. You want clients for life, not just customers? Fall in love with them. It's a different focus, isn't it? It's a different meaning. And that creates a different life because you make decisions differently from that place. There's another meaning. You know, is this punishment in my business? Am I being punished by God? Or am I being challenged? Or is this actually a gift what I'm facing right now? Whatever meaning you give controls what you feel. And what you feel controls the third decision. What are you going to do? Right? The minute you give it a meaning, you get a feeling. When you get a feeling, you're going to do something. You're going to take action. You're going to pull back. A whole economy is driven by this. People start focusing on, oh my God, maybe this is going to go on forever. Maybe I'm not going to get what I need. This might be the end of the way things are. I better pull in my reins. I better not spend this money. I better not take any action. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. How many know what I'm talking about here? So decision-making is your power. You want to change your business? Think about whatever's changed your business in the past. I guarantee what's changed your business is some decisions you made. You made some decisions that shifted your business in a radical way, changed things in a way that shifted the game for you. Decisions about people, decisions about products, decisions about marketing or promotion, decisions about locations, decisions about what you're going to offer, your offerings, decisions. You want to change your whole business, you can do it next few days just with some new decisions, but you're going to get stimulated, all kinds of decisions to look at. You got to decide which ones will make the biggest difference. Today, again, is going to help you understand where those decisions need to be focused based on where you are in the life cycle of your business and where you are in your personal life cycle. By the way, do you make decisions differently? Do you look at time differently when you're 20 than when you're 30, than when you're 40, than when you're 50, than when you're 60, than when you're 70? Yes or no? It'll affect your decisions. So we just spent a little time this morning on 2 things that affect your decisions. One is your state. Will you make decisions radically different in a different state? Yes or no? Yes. Will you focus differently, come up with a different meaning, take different action when you're frustrated than when you're committed or determined or playful? Yes or no? Yes. And the other thing that will affect your decisions is your blueprint. And these next 5 days, all the content's about enriching your blueprint of what's possible, how it can be done, how quickly you can change it, and showing you how, the specific strategies how. But here's my view. 80% of success is why to, 20% is how to. 80% of success is psychology. You're gonna be a great business person, you gotta become a great psychologist, a practical psychologist. You gotta know people, don't you? How they think, how to influence them for a greater good, for themselves, for the business, for the client. How to influence yourself, that's psychology. 20% is the mechanics. So we're gonna really get the psychology solid today in a way that really makes sense. Now, if decisions change our life, let's take something really fast. I want you to write down 2 things. Anywhere you want in your notebook, write this down. What was one of the worst decisions you've ever made? What's one of the biggest failures of your business career? The biggest challenges, biggest failures, biggest disappointments where you did something that just didn't work, and what did you learn from it? And then second, what's been one of the best decisions? What's been one of the greatest successes of your career so far, of your business? And what did you learn from it? How many of you thought of a decision that was quite painful and the core of the decision was making a selection on the wrong partner or person to work with on a project or a company or something of that nature? Raise your hand. Keep your hands up. Look at the percentage of the people it was a people mistake with. So when I said to you, being a practical psychologist is maybe the most important thing of all, a person of influence, now maybe you fully appreciate why. I didn't tell you what problem to pick, and most of you it was a people problem. How many found the decision you made was a decision that had to do with timing? Just terrible timing, I'm curious. Interesting. How many picked a problem that related to a system that messed things up, a system that you chose? Interesting. So people is the dominant component. How many found it was a decision that had to do with something you made within yourself? Meaning you made a decision within yourself that wasn't the brightest decision based on your own fears or frustrations or concerns. And keep your hands up and look, this, along with other people, it's usually something within ourselves, which is why to change the business, you gotta shift the leader. That's where it happens. Now, before we go any further, I want to do something right now while you're in state. How many have thought of one of your greatest successes and felt damn good to remember that moment, by the way? Say aye. Your greatest success, what generated it at its core? What generated it? How many would say that a major part of what you got from that experience was you succeeded because you figured something out you hadn't known before? You had a breakthrough in your understanding or your awareness. Maybe something you even screwed up before, you learned from it, and that's why you succeeded. How many can relate to that in some way? If you can get that, then there are no failures if we can really learn from it. And that's not to be corny. That means it is our mission as a leader to extract value out of every problem. That every problem truly becomes a gift. Because if you don't do that, here's what happens. You start wishing for less problems. And by the way, how well does that work? In fact, think about this. What is the purpose of an enterprise? What's the purpose of a business, of a company? What are we here to do? What are we here to generate? Well, some people say, well, it's to meet my needs. If the business just meets your needs, you're gonna have a job. If it's really a successful business, in its essence, what it's all about is how do we add more value to other people's lives than they've never received before? How do you add more value than they've ever received before from anyone else? The person who's gonna add the most value, now when I say add most value, not your idea of added value, whose idea of added value? You might say, but we're doing all these things. If the customer doesn't care, it's not added value. It's not added value because you think it's so, I think it's so, our employees think it's so, it's added value because the customer thinks it's so. So our job is to add value. And ideally what a business does is it gives us an ability to engender some values. The best companies engender some value. They do something for the world. They get people to think a different way. They shift people. And the third thing a business does also gives you a chance, obviously, for profit. But without the added value, without a shift in the quality of people's lives, that's not gonna happen. So, the question then really becomes, how do we add extraordinary value to people's lives? How does this occur? How do you take a business to that level? There's only one force, and it's the force we've been talking about here, leadership. Leaders make decisions, and from those decisions, they either add value or they take it away. In essence, what does a great leader do? Think about it. If a leader adds value, if their job is to add value, to get us as an organization to add more value, to engender values. If they're a great leader, they add value and they also create a profit, because you can add a lot of value to your customers and go broke. And there have been a lot of businesses that have done that. And who's ever been really good at adding value and losing money? Raise your hand, say aye. So even a nonprofit has to make money or it can't stay around, right? It's gotta have some source that they can continue with. So we have to figure out, how do we add that value? How do we be profitable? Who does that again is the leader. So what's the leader's job? How do they do that? How do they add the value? How do they make sure that we got profit going? What's the leader's job? Come on. Well, how they do it is making decisions, but ultimately, come on, what does a leader really do? If I said to you, we got this business and we want to create a breakthrough in this business right here. See this business? We're going to break a breakthrough in this business today. We're going to transform this business. We're all going to work together. We're going to make this happen. Okay, some decisions got to be made. A leader's got to make some decisions, but ultimately, what a leader does is two things. They solve problems. The only reason this isn't going anyplace is there's something stopping it. They solve problems and they maximize resources. The job of a leader is solve problems and maximize resources. Now, they don't have to personally solve it, but they got to make sure the problem gets solved. That's what leaders do. They solve problems. And by the way, If you're in business, do you have problems, yes or no? You might prefer the term challenges. It feels much better, but the truth is it's still a problem. In fact, any business, even a successful business, has problems. They just have better quality problems. Now, from a standpoint of really changing your life or your business, we know ultimately leaders do it. How they do it, they add value. How do they do it? They solve problems. How do you do that? You make decisions. So before we do anything else, I want you right now, sit up in your chair, and I want you to write down a decision. 1 or 2 decisions that you can make right now before we do anything else that would change your business immediately. What's a decision that you know you probably should make? You may have even been thinking about for some time. It may be something you're no longer going to do. It might be something that you're going to begin doing. It's a decision you're making maybe that relates to a change in personnel or a change in the way you run your time or yourself. Minimum 1 decision, ideally 2, that would be business changing. Pick one that's small, but you know would have a big impact. A small change you know would have a big impact. And the second one, what would be a tough decision? But if you made that decision, you know it would make a difference, a sizable improvement in your business right now. By the way, a real decision is one you take immediate, massive what? When you just think about it, it's not a decision, it's a preference, it's an idea. And the only thing stopping you is either you're not focusing on it or there's fear, some uncertainty, some pullback, some concern. So if there wasn't the concern, if you were just going to step up right now and we said to you, you had to make 2 decisions right now, that if all you did was make these 2 decisions, your business would change for the better immediately, what 2 decisions would you make? Write them down and write down what the decision is specifically, what you do to act on it, and how it would change your business. You got 12 minutes, go. What changes a business? A leader. What does a leader do? They make what? How fast can you change an entire business? How fast? In a heartbeat, the minute you make a decision, but you're not going to make that decision if you're in a lousy what? Or if your blueprint says it's impossible or the game's over. It's a combination of state and psychology. Moment to moment, your state's controlling your decisions. Long term, it's your psychology, your belief structures, your rules. Part of what will happen over the next 5 days is we're laying a foundation today so that as you get 19 different points of view, when I say different, parts of your business you can look at from a new perspective. We're going to have strategies, tactics, what to act on, but all of it is worthless unless you make a decision you really act upon and implement. True? How many came up with 2 decisions you absolutely know? One might have been small. Maybe it's like, you're heading in this direction, and you're going to make a little 10-degree change. But watch what happens. I'm heading this way, I make a 10-degree change, and I take that out a week from now, a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. A couple of years from now, you're in a different destination, different destiny by a small change. How many made a small change and a big decision? Both. Great. How many made a decision, no question in your mind, following through on this, your business will change for the better? Raise your hand if you got that, say aye. Now you could have made that before this morning. You didn't have to come here to make 2 decisions. But how many are happy you made them? Say aye. Now, whether that decision turns into any kind of reality or not is going to be the real question. How many know the decision is right? Raise your hand if you know in your gut it's right. Great. How many know it will absolutely impact the business and no question in your mind in a positive way? Say aye. Aye. Is it possible there'll be some people that won't follow through? Yes. There will be people, a percentage of this room, that will not follow through. And the reason they won't follow through has nothing to do with whether it's a viable option or not, or whether the marketplace needs it or the company needs it. It's going to come down to your psychology as a leader. Now you know why we spend all this time before we're going through strategies and tactics. Because ultimately none of that works unless you master you. Your state, your blueprint, your ability to make decisions, your ability to maximize your resources. But to get there, you got to also understand the training effect. Let me show you what I mean by that. A lot of people, and even a lot of businesses say, well, gosh, we train our people. Who's ever done this? You train your person, they do well for a while, and then they drop off in their skill set. I don't care if it's sales, I don't care if it's a technical skill, having to do with accounting or something on the computer. Who's experienced this with people you work with? Say aye. Now you're highly motivated. It's your business. or you're the leader in the business, or you're the manager, or you're the head of the department, or whatever. So you got a lot of drive. So you bring emotion to the table and you do enough repetition that you master it. They don't. If you give up on them, you're losing and missing out on what it takes to train someone. So here's how training looks. In the beginning of training, when you first start doing something, how fast do people learn and make shifts? Slow or rapid? Huge rapid change happens, right? There's this giant growth that occurs. Now, what eventually happens to anybody when they start to learn something? A new sport, a new business, a new relationship, what do they get to? What do you call it? Plateau. So think of it this way. Some people, their philosophy of life is dabbling. Here's what a dabbler does. They take on a sport like, let's say, tennis, and when they're brand new, they know nothing about tennis. They don't know how to hold the racket, they don't know how to swing, they don't know how to keep score. They think love is an emotion when it's a zero, right? There's nothing, right? But from not knowing anything, in a short time with a little bit of training, do they get pretty damn good, yes or no? If this is 100% mastery and this is zero, they might go to 20 or 30% growth like that within a few days, a few weeks. How many follow what I'm saying here? Say aye. Now what's interesting is, will they top out, yes or no? There'll be a point in which they plateau. What's a plateau? It's when you're doing the same amount of effort, but you're not getting the same level of reward. You're not making the same progress. So in the beginning, how hard is it to make progress when you're a brand new company? I mean, creating a product is progress. Selling your first customers is progress. Getting your first account is progress. Pretty easy, right? When you're in a new relationship, just learning about each other and connecting and being intimate, there's progress, right? In playing tennis, taking up a sport, there's so much progress. But in every human being's experience, there's a point where you're working just as hard, but not making so much progress, and people don't like that. That's why I told you this. And what some people do at that point, if they're a dabbler, they decide to quit. This is obviously the wrong job for me. This is obviously the wrong sport. This is obviously the wrong partner. I shouldn't be in a relationship with this person. The minute they get to a point where they're not being fed, their ego is not being fed, they're not growing, they quit. And so if this was, for example, a dabbler who was in a position of tennis, they might quit tennis and now they say, you know what, I'm not a tennis player, I'm gonna do racquetball. And they get so excited about racquetball because like, oh, this is cool, look at this, because within a few days, what happens if everybody? They start from zero and what happens? Lots of what? Tell me, lots of progress, which feels really good, really fast. They didn't know how to racket, they didn't know how to turn, there were walls all around them and a ceiling. In a few days, bam, they're smashing off the back wall and the side wall, they're doing things Z's, and I mean, it's really cool. Plus, they get a new outfit and stuff, so they look cool. They got goggles, they join a new club, there's all this progress and stuff. So guess what? Grow, 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 everything's great, 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 great. But eventually, who knows what happens? Eventually, they hit a plateau. And guess what? Rather than training themselves further for mastery, what do? They say it's the wrong sport. I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't be a racquetball player. And if I was gonna show you as an example, you grab this real quick. If they've gone out and they've made all this progress, they're real happy. They go, 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 they're growing, 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 boink, they hit this plateau. Wrong sport, not a tennis player. Go up like this, boink, racquetball, all of a sudden, working hard, not getting the result, wrong thing, wrong relationship, wrong job, wrong mission. So then they go out and play golf and they go, boom. They don't even get the progress. And they go, I didn't need to use the F word that many more times in my life, right? You know, different piece. Now that's what a dabbler does. And by the way, dabblers by their nature are unhappy. Think about this. Even with all the economic challenges that exist, most people in North America for sure have a better quality of life than 95% of the planet. 95% of the planet is living on what? How much? 2/3 of the planet, I should say, is living on $2 a day. Your worst nightmare is somebody else's greatest dream. Most of the planet's greatest dream. Your idea of economic downfall is somebody's dream. That's the truth. And so what happens though is, would you agree we have more choices, more freedoms, more opportunities today than any time in human history, yes or no? Are most people's happy? Is their happiness tied to the quality of life they really have? Because we're a world now that's shallow. Most people are dabblers. They try something for a while, doesn't work out, they do something else. Now, you wouldn't be in this room for 5 days if you were a dabbler, but how many of you got to deal with some of these dabblers out there? Say aye. Dabblers are the people you want to make sure you keep off your team or get off quickly, because they're going to quit anyway. And the time, energy, and effort it takes to train a dabbler is the same energy you could have a platinum player. And we're going to show you some ways to do that later on. But let me show you another path for a second before we show you the rest of the training effect. Let's take the path of what I call a stressor. Here's the stressor's philosophy. I find the way. Who can relate to this? Say I. I'm going to find the way, I'm going to achieve it. So they take up a sport like tennis, and it goes like this, and they're doing really, really well, and it's going really good, but eventually, boink, they hit a plateau. Here's the difference. Does the stressor quit? Ever quit? Yes or no? Absolutely not. What does the stressor do when it doesn't work out? What do? Do they settle for it? What if they actually get a little worse for a short time? What happens? They really get stressed when they go, screw this, I'm going to find a way, I'm going to break through, I'm going to learn a book, I'm going to find someone, I'm going to get a coach, I'm going to make this thing happen, I'm going to find a way, I'm going to find whatever it takes to make this thing happen. Poosh! And they break through, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, they break through, ladies and gentlemen. Who knows what I'm talking about here? Say I. And by the way, they break through and all of a sudden they start making progress, and they're so happy, and all of a sudden, guess what happens? Boink. And you go, damn. How the hell, well, how could that happen? I've been working my tail off. I just had this breakthrough. I just worked through this thing. I just fought through it. But by the way, do they hit another plateau? Yes or no? So what happens here? Do they give up? Do they quit? Do they go, it's the wrong sport? What does the stressor do? They stress out. Shit, I'm gonna find a way. I'm gonna make this thing happen. I gotta make this thing. Come on, figure something out. Let's find this thing. I'm gonna work hard. I'm gonna make more calls. I'm gonna make this thing happen. And all of a sudden, eventually, what happens? Poof! Ladies and gentlemen, they break through again. Come on now. And by the way, they eventually get where they want to be. The problem is they're so stressed out by the time they get there, they're so exhausted they can't enjoy it. Who can relate to this in some way? Raise your hand, say I. The majority of people who achieve are stressors. That's a different philosophy of life. It is not what we brought you here for. We brought you here for emotional mastery. We brought you here for business mastery. We brought you here for immersion so you could get into a philosophy of mastering your business and life. Here's the difference. Stressors don't like problems. They want all achievements. Is that blueprint really possible in life and business? Yes or no? No way. So there's a third path. It's the path of the master. And by the way, does the master make progress immediately as well? Yes or no? Brand new at the sport, brand new at the business, brand new relationship, grow, progress, happiness, progress. What eventually happens? Tell me. Boink, plateau. The only difference between the person who's a master and a person who's a dabbler who quits, or a stressor that fights till they're beat up, is this person who's the master expects the problem to come. They're not surprised when it happens. They go, plateau, Danielson, to be expected. Why would you stress out about something that you can expect, that you know is coming? Pretty silly, isn't it? Pretty silly to be stressed out about a problem that you know is going to have to happen. It's part of the process. So a master doesn't get stressed out. They expect it. And so they have a completely different mindset. Do they quit? Yes or no? Do they stress out and try and fight? Yes or no? No, they want to find the pathway. They want to know the secret. They want to know, how do I get to the next level most efficiently, effectively, impactfully, with the least amount of wear and tear, so I can enjoy the experience, so I can help others to enjoy the experience. They know there is a way. And so the difference is they look for someone who's already achieved the result they want, because they know that person has answers. They have a pathway to the result, a pathway to power. And they go learn from them rather than trying to learn by trial and error. You can succeed as the trial and error stressor, but you might be doing it for another 5, 10, or 15 years. And by the time you get there, you may not be enjoying the ride very much. But the master can show you the path. Most people, even when they try to get someone else to tell them, they go to somebody else who's not achieved it. It's like going to a doctor who's fat, smoking, and overweight, in every way, and saying, show me how to get fit. And many people do that. Or they go to somebody who sells financial tools, who's never really made any money, and have to say, manage my money for me. And they're a salesman. Nothing wrong with that, but If they're not making more than you are, that's a clue that maybe you're dealing with the wrong person here. So my life has been about the concept of modeling, and that's what this week is. Modeling says success leaves clues. If someone is successful at anything, not once, but consistently, they're not lucky, they're not better than you are, they're not smarter, they just have a strategy. There's something they're doing different than you are. If you take the same steps, if you take the same actions, if you sow the same seeds, you can reap the same rewards. This week's gonna give you a chance to model a whole series of different strategies that are proven and that work. Now, there's another metaphor for this that I use that I think is really useful, and it's a good metaphor for this week overall. This person, when they get to this stage, they wanna find somebody who's already gotten the result. They don't wanna reinvent the wheel, they don't wanna waste all their time. Because what they're really looking for is someone who knows the road ahead, because they can guide them. So I'll give you an example, a metaphor. How many of you in this room, I want an honest answer with energy, so I want a strong yes if it's true. How many of you in this room have ever experienced the humiliating experience of playing a video game against a child? Say aye if you've had this experience. Who always wins? Why does the child always win? Is it because they're faster, because they're smarter? How does the game work? You sit down with your nephew, your niece, a local person, a friend of yours, child, and they say, here, come on, try this little game. And you're like, no, I don't. Oh, sure, it's easy. They say, here's all you do. Take this thing, push this and this, shoot that and shoot that. And they go, here, you go ahead, you go first. They always like you to go first. And so you get there, you got your little gun and you're ready to go, and all of a sudden you go, choo, choo, and then within 2.5 seconds, what happens? You're gone in less than 3 seconds. And the kid kind of smiles and says, well, let me show you how. And the kid goes, cha-choon, 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 cha-choon. And about 45 minutes later, you get your second turn. Who's had this experience? Say aye. And by the way, you get it next time you're out in 5 seconds, another 45. I mean, this goes on and on. They get 8 million points, you got 12, right? And they kind of snicker at the end. Now, why does this child always win? Is it because they're younger? Is it because they're faster? Is it because they're smarter? No, there's only one reason they win. Because they've played this game before. As a result, they know the road ahead. And listen to me now. This is where the value is going to come out of this day, and really for this week, what we're about to enter into shortly. If you know the road ahead, you have the power of anticipation, not reaction. Anticipation is one of the ultimate powers in life and in business. Anticipation is power. When you know the road ahead, you really have power in your life. Does that make sense? How come that child has done this? It's not just they know the road ahead. Watch me. You go to shoot and you're trying to figure out what's going to happen. So all of a sudden you get shot over here and you react, and you shot over here and react, and you shot behind you and react. Reaction will cause you to die. Reaction will kill your business. Reaction will kill your relationship. Why is that child doing well? Because the child knows the first bad guy is here to my left. What do they know next? I don't even have to wait. I know the next bad guy is behind me on the right, and they turn and shoot him before he can do anything. I know the next challenge is going to be over here, over on this side. I know the next challenge is going to be in front of me. The next one behind me, and they play it enough times that they know where the problem is going to be, and they go solve the problem before it has any power over them. We're going to show you today, to me in my experience of 12 companies, small companies, big companies, public company I took, a set of distinctions that once I knew that, it changed my entire business career, because it allowed me to anticipate where the problems were going to be like magic. It allowed me to recognize the pattern so I could play the game and win. And when you do that, the whole game changes. But to finish the metaphor, what does the master do differently? They want to know the road ahead, so they find somebody who's done it. So let's say you're playing tennis, and let's say you're lucky enough to know Andre Agassi, which I do, and he lives here in Vegas. And you say, Andre, I'm brand new at tennis. I'm not that great, but I'm having a good time, but I'm kind of stuck. I'm not going next level. I'm sure you could just look at me in a few seconds, and you've done this before. You know what to do. I'm working with a coach, but I'm not making progress. He says, well, let me see you play. And you play a few times. He goes, oh, no problem. He said, you're actually doing great. I mean, for the number of hours of lessons you've had, you're doing great, really great. But here's what you're doing. One change I got to give you. You're holding the racket like this. You got to hold the racket more like this. And that's not actually how he shows you, but that's how it feels to you. And he goes, just go ahead and swing and do that. And so now, you've been working really hard to make progress, and now you go to try to hit it, and tell me what happens when you try to hit it the way the master teaches you. What happens? You get better or worse? You get worse. Your talent, your ability goes down. Now, when the ability goes down, what would a dabbler do at this point? Screw you. What does an achiever do? They go, I know you're the master, but I gotta find a way, I gotta break this thing, I gotta make this thing happen. And they go back to what they feel in control of. But someone who's a master, when it gets worse, they go, it's okay, right? Paint the fence. Remember, right? Wash on, wash off. I hate this crap. Wash on, wash off. But some part of them trusts the master doesn't know. Because they played this game. They are training me. And sure enough, you do it, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, it doesn't work. What happens one day in the middle of nowhere? You go from playing worse to all of a sudden you go, ba-boom, and the ball goes over. You go, oh my God, ba-boom, ba-boom, and the ball dies over the other side. And your game, does it get a little better? What happens? It explodes forward. Not a little, giant growth, progress. You're happy. What eventually happens? Tell me quick. Boom, you get a plateau. Does this happen to every business? Yes or no? Does this happen to every relationship? Yes or no? Every career? Yes or no? Every body, physical body? Yes or no? And by the way, you don't quit, you don't stress, you go, a plateau, to be expected. What do I need? I need someone who's got this road before, who knows who's in front of me, who can I learn from? You find that person, they show you, you get worse, and then you explode better. That process will change your business career. Most people fail because they don't want problems, and if they start to solve them and it's working, they want to keep solving it the old way because they understand it rather than a new way that doesn't work at first but eventually takes you to a different world. How many follow what I'm talking about here? Say aye. So to finish this training effect, if you're training a person and you're the leader, you want to train them and you know their skills are going to go up. And by the way, if you do nothing, what's eventually going to happen? They're not just going to plateau. If it's a new skill, what's going to happen? Is it going to drop down? Yes or no? So they're going to train them and they get better for a while and they drop down. But by the way, they're not going to drop down to 0. Maybe they drop down even a third, 40%. They're not where you want them to be. You want to get them to 100%. They went up to 30 and dropped to 20. 20 is better than 0. Instead of being frustrated, you go, guess what I got to do? Repetition. They got a little cognitive understanding. They got a little emotion. Got to train them again. Let's show them again what it is. Let's get them emotional about it. Let's do it again with repetition. And now you start from a higher place at 20. And you grow, boom, 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 boom. Another 30, 35%, you're up at 70% of mastery. What's going to happen? Plateau. What's eventually going to happen even? Going to go down. Maybe they drop by a third. But now they're at 50% mastery. It's this thing, damn, why do we train these people? They don't retain it. Don't be stupid. This is how you train somebody. Now you train them again. Repetition, the video, the audio, a class, you coaching them, a mentor, whatever it is, a coach. Train them again. And by the way, what eventually happens with enough training effect? They master where their downside is higher than most people's idea of mastery. How many, by the way, have done this in some area of your own life? You kept training yourself, got stronger and stronger. Say aye. That's the process we're going to do here. I got a question for you though. Could you know all this? Could you understand all this and still not get a result? Yes or no? And what would stop that result? Action. But if it was just related on you, that'd be easy. And many of you are leaders and you're used to in your life being able to do whatever you want. And when your business is small, you can run the whole thing. But as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you're more dependent upon other people. Maybe people you don't even personally know real well. Their skill sets may not be as strong as yours. You want to do it, but you're trying to implement, but it's not happening. If you and I are going to take things to the next level, we got to understand what causes things to fail. So who in this room has ever failed to achieve their goal, their dream, their desire? Who's ever failed to do it? Say aye. Yes, again, if you don't raise your hand, you lie about other stuff too. Now, I asked this question years ago, a couple years ago. I was speaking at a group called TED, Technology, Entertainment, and Design. And the room was 1,000 people. It was a really dark room. And it was filled with the best of the best in business and technology. Like the guys that founded Google were there. And, the guys that, started Yahoo. people from the entertainment business, some of the biggest names and influencers in that business, people from scientists from all over the world. It's a really cool thing. If you've never been to TED and you can never get in, go there. And there's a place called TED.com where you can watch many of these videos. But here's what they do. Everybody has 18 minutes, and they bring over the course of 4 days all these speakers, and you have 18 minutes to deliver your message. Now, since my shortest message is usually 50 hours, I was somewhat stressed because I didn't want to give a message. I want to train people. Our goal is to immerse each other so we don't just know it, we don't just feel it, we get enough habit, we do it. But I said, okay, I'll do it. I have some friends there. They said, you got to go. It's really important. I get there, and the first thing they tell me is, when you get up there, this guy doesn't know me, he runs the show, says, don't get people jumping and stuff. Please don't do that stuff. Don't change their state. Let them sit like they normally do in the dark, totally silent, doing nothing. So, okay, if I'm not going to change them physically, the other way you can change someone is by changing their focus. So the way you change someone's focus, ask them a quality what? If you keep asking, their answers. So I didn't, I'm up on stage and the room's completely dead and quiet and I'm starting out. And so I said, who here has ever failed to achieve a dream or goal of theirs? And I raised my hand. Not a single hand gets raised in the entire room. Thank you for your full participation. I said, come on, who here? And I used my own state and I got them. They all raised their hand. So then I asked them this question. I want to ask you the same question. It's the first time I've ever asked them. It was really interesting to see the answer. I said, okay, you've all failed to achieve your goal. Better yet, who's here's had someone else who worked for you who failed to achieve their goal? Who's had that happen in this room as well? Raise your hand, say I. Pretty frustrating, isn't it? So when people fail to achieve their goal, what's the reason they give? They always can tell you why they failed. They can tell everybody why they failed. Or when you failed, why have you said you failed? And then all of a sudden people start yelling answers. So let's see your answers so I can compare them. If you failed to achieve your goal or someone who's working for you failed and they didn't achieve it, what's the first answer they tell you why? Why didn't you achieve the goal? The answer is quick. What do they say? Quick. Didn't have enough time. Number one answer you'll usually hear, didn't have enough time. But most of us who've ever done any studies on this have found there's a paradox. There's a paradigm. Work always expands to meet the time you have for it. Who's ever had no time, and because of that, you had a breakthrough? How many have had this happen before? Say I. So they'll say, I don't have time. What's the next thing they say? I failed because we didn't achieve the goal because, quick, why? Didn't have enough money. We didn't have the economic resources, right? What's another one? Quick. Didn't have the experience. We didn't have enough experience to figure out how to do this, to make it happen. Somebody else, why did we fail? You didn't help me enough. It's your fault, right? Many times you'll hear people say, a manager will say, I got lousy people. And then people say, we have lousy management. Why else do we fail? Lousy management, lousy people, not enough resources, not enough money, not enough time. What else? It's the market. It's the conditions of the market. The market is really bad. That's why it's the market's fault, right? There wasn't the market just doesn't have the potential to do this much business. Someone else, why did we fail? The industry's bad. Why did we fail? What's that? We don't know what to do. We don't have the right network. We don't know the right people. Come on, why else did we fail? Why? Come on. We didn't have the technology. There's not enough desire in the organization. We don't know the right contacts. And all these things are being yelled, same things you're telling me are being yelled. And in the darkness, I heard this voice say, I didn't have enough Supreme Court justices. And I looked down in the darkness, and it's Vice President Al Gore. True story. And the whole room starts laughing, right? And this is in Northern California, which is a very democratic stronghold group of people that were there in the technology business. So they start clapping, right? And what's he alluding to? He's alluding to the fact that he lost the presidency, right? Even though he had a slight majority in the popular vote, but he lost it because they went to the Supreme Court. And so the group claps like crazy, and I look at him and say, that's one way to explain why you failed to become president of the United States. And the whole room goes. And I said, so let's look at this. Let's look at not just you, but let's look at this whole pattern, because I'm a student of patterns. If you want to succeed, you have to become a student of patterns. You got to be good at pattern recognition and pattern utilization. Patterns give you the breakthrough. That kid that plays the game is great at pattern recognition, so they can anticipate and they don't have to react. That gives them power. So let's look at the pattern here. Every person in this room who described failure described it for the following reasons. And I gave all the reasons: time, money, network we don't have, people we don't have, not the right management, not the right people, right? We don't have the resource. And they went through this whole thing. I said, what all these things, not of Supreme Court justices, what they all have in common is you're all saying we didn't have the resources to succeed. Money is a resource. Time is a resource. Technology is a resource. People is a resource. Experience is a resource. Supreme Court justices are so many resources, right? And they all agreed. I said, here's the only problem. I said, in my experience, and you correct me if you're wrong, and I want an honest answer. When we get out of ourselves and we look at human beings and their ability to succeed or fail, how many people you've ever met who did not have the resources and they beat somebody who had all the resources? I said, resources, when you look at the most powerful and effective people in history, were never the problem. They didn't have the resources, but they got them. How do people get resources when they don't have them? The answer is they're resourceful. The ultimate resource is resourcefulness. That's what makes someone successful. And here's what's great about resourcefulness. Who has it within them? Who? Every human being, but the question is whether you access it or not. See, I said earlier, you know this stuff, but if you don't do it, why aren't you doing it? It's not because you can't, it's because you're not being resourceful enough. You'll tell me the reason. I went back and the market was like this. I went back and my people wouldn't do that. I went back, but is there an answer to every one of those problems, yes or no? If you are what enough? What enough? So think of it this way. What's the ultimate resource then? Resourcefulness, me, but I'll give you a more specific one. Human emotion. Human emotion. Because remember we said you can know what to do but not do it because you don't have enough emotion. Think about it. Here's the ultimate resource. It's not time. It isn't money. It isn't a network. It isn't a computer system. It isn't even the right people. If you're committed enough, determined enough, can you find the people? Yes or no? Yes or no, my friends? Come on. Yes. If you're creative enough and you don't have the money, can you find the money? Yes or no? Yes. If you are warm enough, loving enough, connected enough, can you help people enough that they'll want to help you? Yes or no? Yes. It doesn't matter what it is you want, you can get the resources if you're resourceful enough. And the ultimate resource is human emotion. So if you want to master business, you must become a master of human emotion. Your own first and others. And you want a good example? You can see them anywhere. And by the way, you can see them in one of the largest retailers in the world. What company is that? Quick. Walmart. Take a look at Walmart. If you want to study some history and find something interesting, look at Walmart in 1974. Go back and read the financial papers, right? What people were saying in the market, what all the pundits were saying about what you should do with Walmart in 1974. Anybody know? Buy or sell? Which one? Virtually all these people are saying sell, and here was the reason. They've run out of resources. And guess what those resources were? Money, what else? Money was a base, but the biggest thing they said is he's taken all the market. There's only so many cities where you can bring in one of these cheap, low price mentality retailers. That was the belief. By the way, who was dominating the retail market at that time? Sears and who else? Kmart. In 1974, there were 78 Walmarts. There were more than 1,600 Kmarts. And I can't remember how many Sears, I apologize, but tons. The combined market value of Sears and Kmart was like 10,000-fold of what it was for Walmart. You know what's interesting though? What did these pundits miss? True, he didn't have the resources, but Sam Walton was one of the most resourceful human beings in the world. They didn't understand the value of his ability to go into his people, maximize their energy, their excitement, get them so excited about a discount for a client that they'd get in a car and drive 4 cities over to make a buy. That when people came in, they'd say, don't go here, let me show you what we can do. He turned them on fire, and he turned himself on fire, and he produced more sales, and he produced more revenue, he produced more profit, he got more funding. He didn't believe what they believed. He had a different blueprint. They told him what he couldn't do. He just got in his truck and did it, right? His whole mindset is, I'm gonna make it happen. And Walmart beat Kmart. Guess how they did it? Different belief system. Instead of there's only so many cities, we're gonna go outside cities where there's a small population, but they all could drive 20 to 30 minutes. But if they had this opportunity to save money, they would. and they created a different model that opened the market geometrically. And today, what's the size of Walmart? Anybody know? What number of billion in sales? How much? 350 billion in sales. A third of a trillion. And guess what? They dominate the world. By the way, where did Kmart go in the meantime? Bankrupt. So when I said this, everybody, guess what's happened? All these people are like, wow, yeah, wow, makes sense, yeah. So then I turn back and I turn to Vice President Al Gore and I say, so Mr. Vice President, I watched you last night. He'd done a speech the night before he'd come out with a movie of, what's the title of it? An Inconvenient Truth. It was a speech he was doing first. And he gave us that speech the night before. And I worked with President Clinton a lot. I knew Al Gore from that time, not real well. I worked more with Clinton, but I knew him obviously. And I'd seen him speak many times, like all of you. And I said to him, last night you were on fire. The level of energy, everybody in this room was affected, and the whole room started clapping like crazy. I mean, he was like a different guy. I said, let me just tell you something. If you think it was the Supreme Court justices, you don't get it. When you went and debated George Bush that first time, I remember it vividly on national television trying to decide what to do, and I said, I couldn't vote for you. If I wanted to, I couldn't. Because there just was no energy, there was no passion, there was nothing there. I said, if you had been the man you were last night, if you'd used all your resources, you wouldn't need a Supreme Court justice to even vote, and you would have been president of the United States. And he went, and the whole room stood up and would start clapping like crazy, right? And they came by and gave me a high five and a hug, right? And everybody, came to, and that night, I had the guys from Kleiner Perkins, the billionaire guys that really head the tech industry. They all took me to dinner and go, we've all been wanting to say that to him for like 6 years. Yeah. I can't believe you said that in front of everybody. I said, this is the truth. I go, I know it's the truth. Can you get him to run for president? I go, no, he's got a different mission now. But that's it, man. I want you to get this week. There is no limitation except the one you're creating yourself, not some positive thinking BS, but because the resources you need are there if you're resourceful enough. If your team's more resourceful, you'll find the way. It can't just be you, which is why you create a culture like this. That's where the game changes. And that's why these 7 pillars are going to be so valuable.